guards. But we'll see what happens with Landon Dickerson. But before we get into Nick Sirianni's presser and we do talk a little bit of Quez Watkins, I want to try to keep the positivity going. So we're going to bring on Eagles insider Dave Spadaro, and hopefully he can help us be a little bit more positive about this 10-4 Eagles football team. What's up, Dave?
Bill, good morning. Merry Christmas to you and everyone when it gets here. I know it doesn't feel that way for some right now, but I mean, look, Bill, I've been through so many seasons, and there, again, ups and downs. There is no doubt this is a tough time for the Eagles, and that's part of the game. And you find out who makes the fight, who gets through it, and who doesn't. And that's kind of what this is all about right now. And you find out a lot about the coaching staff. You find out a lot about the leadership, because it's easy to be a leader when things are going great. And this is when the true leaders step up, when you've lost 3 straight games and the wolves are howling. There are fans outside NovaCare this morning who are positive about the Eagles, and that was nice to see early in the morning. But, I mean, no doubt, look, the way to turn it around is to win a football game on Christmas against the New York Giants. I'm not looking down, as I thought Nick, I mean, I know he was, people were portraying him as testy. I think that he is intense right now, as everyone is, but he's right. You don't talk about what's going to happen down the line. You talk about how you can get better right now and win on Monday.
And talking about that game on Christmas Day, Eagles are 12-point favorites. So even with all this negativity, quote unquote, that's circling around this team, 3 straight losses, a 12-point favorite against Tommy DeVito and the New York Giants. So hopefully they can right the ship. But you mentioned you learn a lot about the coaches and the players when you go through some adversity like this. Is this the most adversity that Nick Sirianni has faced now in his 3-year tenure with the Philadelphia Eagles?
In a sense, yeah. I mean, it's different than in 2021, right? Because he was new to the team. The expectations from the outside were different than they are now. But I think back then he was trying to establish a foundation for his program, and the mocking that he took for the press conferences and the planting the seeds and, the way that he approached practice and all that. And then you start off 2-5. There was certainly some adversity in terms of just capturing the locker room and making sure that those who want to be part of the program understand that this is the way Nick is going to do things. Nick stuck true to what he believes in. Season turned around. It's obviously different when you go from 10-1 after a Super Bowl season with Super Bowl expectations that everyone has, and lose 3 straight games and lose control of that number 1 and now number 2 seed in the NFC playoff picture. So, I mean, I think there's always pressure. I don't think that the way that the team feels it inside the building, the NovaCare complex, it equates to what the fans, the media all kind of put on the team, because every day there's a ton of pressure. And even when team was winning, it wasn't winning the way it wanted to win. It hasn't put together that kind of game. And I think there's a lot of internal kind of like, hey, we got to get to where we know we can be. And they just haven't gotten there yet. So, I don't know. It could be more now because of the circumstances of the season. But I also know this, Bill. I mean, look, I'll give you a great example of a season. I remember in 2008, Eagles are bumping along, struggling. Was it the tie to the Baltimore Ravens? And I remember going in Andy Reid's office. Back then, we taped the Andy Reid TV show, and he got pissed off at me and me, like, Homer boy. And we had to obviously halt the taping on that and then reshoot the segment. And the question was, what can you do to get back into the playoff picture? And the idea was, hey, play better football. So they went out on Thanksgiving and they beat the Cardinals, and Brian Westbrook had 4 touchdowns, and the Eagles rallied, crazy, improbable ending of that regular season, got into the playoffs, and then got hot and advanced to the NFC Championship game and lost a game they should have won against the Arizona Cardinals and Kurt Warner. And so it can happen. Momentum is a real thing. Confidence is a real thing. And that's what the Eagles need right now. They need to get some momentum, and playing the Giants on Monday night has to be the start of that momentum.
That's a great analogy, Dave. I remember that 2008 season. I was working for the Eagles at the time, so I was on the sidelines, and I believe it came down to the last game of the year against Dallas to get into the playoffs.
Right,
And
and to get to that point, to make that game even worth anything, like the Raiders had to win or something.
yes,
Jeff Garcia had to win. Like it
and
was
that
a
was the
lose.
1:00 game. That was the one
Yeah.
o'clock game. We kicked off at 4:00, and we're all kind of like waiting. And I remember thinking to myself, are the Eagles going to be able to just flip the switch and turn this on at 4:00 while they've all been waiting to see if the game even matters? And man, did they turn that switch on.
Yeah.
They dominated that game.
Yeah, the corridors of Lincoln Financial Field were packed with everybody watching the games, cheering on for what happened. And then the Eagles started the game and just, steamrolled the Dallas Cowboys. And then took that momentum, that one game momentum into, I guess it was Minnesota first and then New York and then out to Arizona. So
and they had that Cardinals game, Dave. That
had the
one still
Cardinals
hurts.
game on and just didn't handle it well at the end of the game and couldn't get off the field defensively against Kurt Warner.
Yeah, that one still hurts. Well, let me ask you, because I did a video on my Instagram, and for those who aren't following, at Legal Hands to the Face on Instagram, I did a video this morning, and basically what I asked was, are we seeing a delayed Super Bowl hangover with this team? And what I meant by it is I went back and looked, and everybody all offseason was concerned about this Super Bowl hangover, saying, hey, when you lose the Super Bowl, it's really hard to go back to a Super Bowl the following season. So I went and looked deeper at the numbers, and it's not that hard to make the playoffs. In fact, 70% of Super Bowl losers have made the playoffs. You can now include the Eagles in that 70%. But where it becomes difficult is only 8 Super Bowl losers have ever gone back to a Super Bowl. Only 3 have ever won it, and they were coached by Tom Landry, Don Shula, and Bill Belichick. So is what we are seeing right now some of the effects of how difficult it is to go back to a Super Bowl after losing the big game?
I mean, that would be an excuse, and I don't believe in excuses. The Eagles don't believe in excuses. I mean, this is a team that has just not played dominating football as we saw last year. So, right, last year's a separate thing. This is a team that has been living with very narrow margins in 2023. On Monday night, Drew Lock puts together an improbable touchdown drive. Narrow margin goes against the Philadelphia Eagles in that game. A win on Monday night, and we're sitting here 11-3 and feeling a whole lot better, even though it wasn't a pretty win. Going to Seattle, a house of horrors. Pete Carroll, a coach who's had mastery over the Eagles. Had the Eagles been able to pull that one out, we wouldn't be talking about that. So no, I hear what you're saying. I think there is legitimacy to that. I don't think anybody with the Philadelphia Eagles would ever consider that, because that's an excuse. And the Eagles, you just don't make excuses, Bill. You don't make excuses for injuries. You don't make excuses for your schedule. You don't make excuses for coming back after a Super Bowl appearance. This is a new football season. This team has been rested. This team is prepared, and it has just fallen short here in the last 3 weeks.
You mentioned injuries, and that reminds me, I want to talk to you about a couple of players. And I know you don't have any injury information, but Landon Dickerson reported that he's going to probably miss this New York Giants game. Do you know what the plan is at guard? Is Cam Jurgens going to be back for this game? And if so, who's going to start at the left guard position?
Yeah, I don't know about Cam. So we'll see. The Eagles are back in the complex today, and they'll get on the practice field and start working through things. It will be, look, the backups then are, as we saw, Sua Opeta, Tyler Steen, Jack Driscoll can play inside as well. So there are some players who've had some experience this year who would be suitable replacements and capable replacements, and the players that the Eagles are confident in step up. If Jurgens can't go, certainly if Dickerson can't play on Monday night. Very unfortunate injury for Landon, and a really tough loss for the Eagles offensive line.
And they got the Giants on Christmas Day. How is the Giants defensive line this season going up against probably a banged up Eagles offensive line?
Yeah, I think when you consider going up against the Giants defense, you really don't think about a particular unit. You consider the scheme, because Wink Martindale really does like to blitz. He brings a ton of pressure. And I know that the dynamic young Kayvon Thibodeau is a really good player off the edge, and they'll move him inside and outside. He's a player that you have to watch. But I think against Martindale and against this with this defense, it's the way that Martindale brings the pressure and from where he brings the pressure. And the Eagles handled that beautifully last season. Again, really just we're looking at this weird schedule. First time we're seeing the Giants all season, and then we see them twice in 3 weeks. But you have to prepare for the scheme. But I think Eagles match up fine with their personnel, with what the Giants have. The Giants defense has played really hard this year. They've had some terrible offensive woes. They've gotten it, kind of normalized here with DeVito, and that's given the defense a chance to catch its breath a bit. But at times this year, it's been the Giants defense being the Giants offense, and they've done a really good job. So they're capable of taking over a football game if you let that blitz package win, and the Eagles just can't let that happen.
The crazy thing is Wink Martindale blitzes the second most in the entire NFL, only behind Brian Flores in Minnesota, but yet they have the second least amount of sacks. So I know a lot of fans say blitz, blitz, blitz. It's not necessarily the answer in today's NFL. But against Drew Lock, I was a little bit surprised that Matt Patricia blitzed as little as he did. According to Pro Football Focus, they only blitzed twice. It said 5% of the dropbacks. You think it'll be a similar strategy against Tommy DeVito, or do you expect the Eagles to bring a little bit more pressure?
Yeah, I mean, understand you're always blitzing against the offensive line and not against the quarterback. And so I think in Seattle, the Eagles felt that the 4-man pass rush and 5-man pass rush would win more often against the Seattle offensive line. And I feel like that'll be the same thing on Monday night. I mean, the Eagles have had great success against the New York pass protection team. And I think that doesn't change. Again, look, the unfortunate thing is that this is the defense is built on not. It was interesting. I'll kind of backtrack here. Nick talked about the Eagles offense yesterday, and he talked about the two things that, and we're all kind of trying to parse things out, like what's going on? Why is this wrong? Why is that wrong? And the two constants that he came up with, the two constants that he came up with was relative to this year and last year was the explosive plays are down and the turnovers are up for the offense. And those are the two most, and you have to consider the history of what Nick believes in. Those are the two most important statistics, other than obviously wins, losses, points on the board. Takeaways and X plays. And so the objective of the defense is to generate pressure with your 5-man pass rush and not give up the X plays. And unfortunately, in that last drive, Drew Lock had a couple of big X plays on third down. Both of them, one of them to Metcalf, that 34-yarder, and then the touchdown pass to Smith and Jigba. And otherwise, the defense pretty much did its job, but they're just not getting enough pressure, and they're not getting enough takeaways. And I think that Nick kind of alluded to it yesterday as well, talking about Matt Patricia, who will meet the media here at 12:30 today. And we'll get a little sense of what he believes in. There's a sense of unknown here. Like, what is he going to do that might be different in terms of play calls than what Sean did for the first, 3 quarters of the season here? And I think the idea is the Eagles need to limit the X plays. The Eagles need to get more pressure on the quarterback. Thus, they need to take the football away more, and they're just not doing that.
Eagles now on the season are a -6 turnover differential, which is tied for 23rd in the NFL. And as bad as the Giants have been at times, New York Giants are a +6, which is tied for 6th in the NFL. So every week winning the turnover battle is important, but definitely this week against the New York Giants.
Yeah, and Bill, we've heard a lot from the run the ball crowd, and the Eagles ran the ball for 178 on Monday night, and the Eagles scored 17 points. And it's not just one thing. Yes, it's important to run the ball. It's also important to get chunk plays. They're missing on the X plays, right? And but to me, one thing there's 2 steps that never go away that means so much, and it's the giveaway takeaway ratio. That is so important. And last year the Eagles were, when Jalen got hurt, I think they were first in the league, and then he missed 2 games against Dallas and against the Saints, and that number went down. Or maybe it was down a little bit because Chicago, there were some turnovers. But
even still, they finished at a +8.
Yeah, they were great. And that makes a huge difference. And being -6 is not a good thing. That is not a winning formula. And so that how it changes, I don't know, Bill, but it has to change for the season to change in the right direction.
It's so surprising too, because you talk about Nick Sirianni, and one of the things that he preaches is turnovers. I mean, even in the Novacare complex, you guys have pictures of things about how to
All
protect
yeah.
the football, and so that's a real big surprise. But sticking with the injuries, I was talking about Landon Dickerson, news that kind of got with all the stuff that was going on with the defensive coaching changes and the 3 losses in a row. The 21-day practice window was activated for Avant Maddox. Are we expecting Maddox to make it back this season?
I think you see where he's at. You open up the practice window. He's worked really hard in his rehab. You have hope. I don't know how much hope. You have you want to give him a chance. And clearly they feel like this is, Dumb and Dumber. Are you saying there's a chance? Yeah, there's a chance. I don't know what percentage of a chance there is, but I think that's a really positive thing. The Eagles have missed Avante tremendously. He's worked really hard. He's been on the sidelines for all the games, home and away. He's been a big part of the team. And so I don't know if that means going into the playoffs, going to the Super Bowl. I don't know if it's even pot. It seems like there's a chance. And now there's a 21-day practice window. We'll see when he gets on the practice field. But clearly, it's a positive sign.
Definitely, because when Avante Maddox is healthy, which unfortunately hasn't been as much as we've all hoped, one of the best slot corners in the NFL, no doubt about it. And while we're talking about that cornerback position, obviously some fans, we all have eyes. We saw James Bradbury, not his best game, but I did think that some of the young guys played pretty well. What did you see from Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks in that game against Seattle?
Yeah, I thought Keely was really impressive, and I thought he was good the week before as well. And he's getting more and more confident. He's learning his technique. He's physical. He's got a big, perfect prototype, large cornerback body. Can he turn and run against the elites? We'll see. Will he see? Look, the Eagles are going against Tommy DeVito here, and then Kyler Murray, and then Tommy DeVito. So I think it's a good testing ground for him. I think the Giants have good receivers. I think that I think he'll continue to earn more playing time. So I like where Keely Ringo is. I like that, Eli Ricks has battled through all season. And the thing with Eli is he can get handsy sometimes. And cornerback is so much about technique and, flipping your hips the right way. And, if you mess up your technique one teeny bit, you are losing that battle. And it's not necessarily the battle against the wide receiver. It's the battle against the quarterback and the precision that quarterbacks have at this level of putting the football in a very specific spot. So Eli has done a much better job being disciplined, better with his technique. The penalties are down. We saw quite a bit of them early in the season. He's a cool cat. He works really hard. He's talented. And when you have young cornerbacks, you've got to go through growing pains. And so we're going through the growing pains with these young guys. They're getting better. And we obviously look to the future, right? With young cornerbacks, you can't have enough good young cornerbacks. That's why the Eagles kept so many on this roster when the initial 53-man team was established. So it's really good to see late in the season contributions from both of those players.
And another younger cornerback that isn't going to contribute this season, but some fans forget, Eagles picked up Isaiah Rodgers this season when he's on the suspended list, but he could also play for this team next year.
Keep him coming. I mean, Pass rushers, cornerbacks, quarterbacks, those are the valuable, very difficult to find players in the NFL.
Another young guy I want to talk about, safety, Sidney Brown. You saw some good plays, some bad plays. Sometimes his aggressiveness gets him in trouble a little bit, but I think it's a lot easier to temper a guy down than try to ramp him up. What did you see from Sidney Brown on Sunday?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think the Eagles build him as kind of a bullet on the field, and that's what he is. He's all over the place. He's very energetic. He's versatile. He's got to be more secure in his tackling. He's missed a couple tackles, and no question about that. And he knows it. But getting better and better, playing a couple of different positions for the Eagles. And I like where he is progressing to. And I think that he'll be a player to contribute for the rest of the season and for years to come.
So it looks like, unfortunately, with the Eagles losing 3 straight, their chance at the 1 seed going to be very, very difficult with the way the 49ers are playing. So now we turn our focus to, we want the NFC East. We want to be the 2 seed. I tried to dive in to the different scenarios with the standings, Dave. I don't know if you've looked at it, but it looks like now, if the Eagles win out and the Cowboys win out, you're going to have to go to like the 4th tiebreaker, because head-to-heads tied 1-1. Division records would both be 4-1. Conference records would both be 9-3. So now you have to look at strength of victory, which goes and looks at the opponents that they've beaten. Have you taken a look at this, Dave? It's like trying to figure out the presidential election on election night.
No, the hanging Chad. No, because I really want to just beat the Giants on Monday night, and I've long stopped looking down the line. And I'm not sure what it gets you other than frustration. I mean, I know it's fun to do.
Yeah.
I don't really get fun doing that, because I always go into every game thinking the Eagles are expecting and believing and knowing that the Eagles are going to win every game. So that's all I care about. And I know that, the Dolphins and the Cowboys have a big one on Sunday, and everybody will be watching that. The way, look, after 3 straight losses, man, and the way everybody's, the questions and the panic and how upset everybody is, I just want to get a win on Christmas and make everybody feel glad again about this football team, build this football team up. And because, at the end of the day, Bill, I believe that if this Eagles team plays what I believe can be its best football, and you ask me, well, how do you believe this, Dave? Because we haven't seen it yet this season. Well, I would tell you that, like, the Dolphins game, the Eagles played really well, and the Rams game, the Eagles played really well. And there were moments against the Cowboys in that Lincoln Financial Field. Eagles played with Buffalo after trailing at halftime was great. That if this team plays its best football, the Eagles can beat anybody, anywhere, and I don't care. And so that's all. I just want the Eagles to play great football and go into the next game at their best.
I hope so, Dave, because if they lose a 4th straight,
Bill,
this city may lose its mind.
Say it. Don't if me. Don't if me. Come on.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I'm going to try to be positive today. I told the
Bill, are you having trouble being positive? You're a positive guy, and I understand the gig you have. I mean, and it's your job to try to look for solutions, to try to figure out what's going on here. Are you having trouble being positive?
I am, and I am usually very positive with this team. And what I've said now for a few weeks, it wasn't just after the Niners game or after the Cowboys game or after the Seahawks game. My concerns with this team are the personnel on the defensive side of the football. And that's why I'd love to see, hey, maybe Avant Maddox can come back. I was hoping to see Shaq Leonard be the guy he was in Indianapolis. I didn't think he would be. I was hoping he would be. So that's my concerns, is on the defensive side of the football. But to keep it positive, if the offense can start to click and fire on all cylinders, it may not matter what our defense does if the offense can dominate games. So let's hope that happens on Christmas Day. But before I let you out the door, big plans for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day? What do you got going on, Dave?
Well, my daughter's in town. She's with me right now. And my son comes into town on Friday. So we've got some stuff planned we're going to go see Beauty and the Beast at the Walnut Street Theater on Saturday as a family, and then go out to dinner as a big family that night. And then we're going to do a little Seven Fishes on Christmas Eve. And then we're going to go kick the Giants' butts on Christmas Day.
Yeah, hopefully Tommy DeVito has too much fish on Christmas Eve night with the Seven Fishes, shows up and gets absolutely dominated by.
You're loving that Tommy DeVito angle.
I love DeVito, man. Yeah. I love the whole thing, but I mean, he's starting to wear thin, especially his agent. At this point, look, it was funny when you wore the fedora the first night, and now you're kind of making a mockery of yourself, But
but hey, guess what? It's selling, and isn't that what it's all about?
Well, it's a perfect town for it.
Yeah.
New York, North Jersey, the whole Italian thing. In fact, he was at my buddy. You may see some stories today. DeVito was at a card shop yesterday. That was my college quarterback owns that card shop. They had DeVito there. His agent was there, and he said he did a real nice job with the kids. So
good. And what they pay him, Bill? Spill the tea. Spill the tea.
They paid him a ton. That's all I'll say. They paid him a ton. But Dave, I want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas.
You so much.
Hopefully next week.
I to you, and thanks for having me on, and thanks to you, everyone out there, for being great Eagles fans. don't lose the love, don't lose the faith, and everybody have a happy and Merry Christmas. And one more thing, go Birds!
Thank you, Dave. Dave Spadaro, Eagles insider, joining the show. And I see you guys in the chat. We bring Dave on because he does provide that positivity. I get it. He's an Eagles employee. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, I'm going to dive into the Nick Sirianni press conference. We're going to talk about it because some of the things were ridiculous that were said. So stay tuned, guys. Hit that like button. Hit that share button. We will be right back.